Wow, hello, and welcome to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. This podcast has been such a long time coming. I feel like it's something that I know I've been wanting to do for a really long time and just wanted to wait until it felt like my schedule allowed for it and that I had the equipment and the space and the time to really dedicate a lot of my time to doing something like this. So hello, I'm Bailey. If we haven't met before, I am 23 years old. I live in Nebraska. I live on a farm with my husband and our pup Luna, and I will definitely be getting more into that too in the future. But today I wanted to share with you just my raw and real health story. I feel like we can learn so much about ourselves through other people's stories, and today we're gonna get right into it. We're gonna get real and transparent. We're gonna get honest, and I really just want to share kind of what I've been going through the past 5 years and beyond that a little bit in regards to my health and what that's kind of led my life to look like now. So with that, I'm going to be starting every episode with a segment called How I'm Nourishing My Body, Mind, and Spirit. Okay, so I'm going to answer each category each week, but the reason that I really want to do this is because you have to have all three, in my opinion, to have optimal health. Okay, so if all three of those, body, mind, and spirit, aren't being nourished, right, you are going to feel the effects of that. And I feel like I've definitely noticed this too when it comes to my mind and spirit. I would say the past few months, they've been pretty greatly neglected. And I really noticed those are like the hardest ones for me to really focus on because I get up early and I exercise. I eat nutrient-dense foods. I prepare and preserve vegetables and fruits, and we raise our own chickens for meat and eggs. And with all of this, though, I've noticed that when my spirit isn't being nourished, my mindset absolutely tanks. Like I have self-doubt, I'm unhappy, I'm anxious about the future. I become like money obsessed and not content with my life or my circumstances. So over the past, I would say probably month, that has kind of become my focus. And so this week, how I have been nourishing my body to start with is I've been getting up at 5:30 a.m. again. And this is something that's very new for me. I used to wake up at 5 a.m. for work every day, but I've gotten out of that habit, and I've noticed that as a result of that, I start my day already feeling like I don't have enough time to do everything that I want to do that day. For my mind, I've been trying to, on the weekends, spend time off of social media, and I've developed reading more frequently. So reading instead of scrolling. And this is, again, very new, but something I'm starting to implement. And when it comes to my spirit, I am spending the first 25 minutes of my day reading my Bible, journaling, and having a conversation with God, right? Understanding that, like, in order to live a happy, fulfilled, joyful life, we need to let Him in and let Him really play a role in our lives and be a support system for us. So, the truth about spirit, too, is that, like, on the outside, it can really look squeaky clean. You can go to church, you can pray before meals, you can have a really healthy marriage, but until you let God in, you never really find true joy within living out your purpose, right? So we're going to talk about purpose a lot on this podcast, but when it comes to our purpose, we all have such a unique purpose, and that looks so different for everyone. But to find true joy in what you're doing at any moment in the day can be really, really challenging, right? It can lead you to not forgive people. It can lead you to lead with your mind and not your heart. You make impulsive decisions, or sometimes you even feel isolated when you're surrounded with other people. So those are the three areas that I have started to individually focus on, and I'm going to continue to share with you how I have been doing that. All right, let's go ahead and, like I said, let's just go ahead and get into it. So this podcast is focused on a lot of different things, Mostly my intention with it is to build a community centered around Christ that also focuses on our health and our wellness and our mind, body, spirit, everything in one, and also helps you discover what your purpose is and how you can live that out in different seasons of your life. But today I want to share with you, like I said, my health journey. So this is the past 5 years and where I'm at today, but I want to start too with the physical limitations. So if we take it all the way back to high school, I had a back injury. I felt like a pop in my back, and the pain lasted for about 3 weeks, and then it kind of, I would say, went dormant in my body. So it didn't really cause me a lot of pain after high school or throughout the rest of high school. And so when I then went to college, my freshman year of college, I was dancing at Nebraska Wesleyan. And I truly feel like my body just could not handle any sort of impact, right? Dance is a pretty intense sport, and when you're doing it at the college level, you just move in ways that you don't move if you weren't dancing. I noticed that I started to feel pretty chronically inflamed, and I remember nights too when I would just like wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be crying because my back just hurt so bad and I didn't know why, and my shins were bruising, and so I would ice before and after dance, and I would really try to minimize the pain that I'd feel in the morning after like a dance, because we practiced from 9:30 to 11 o'clock at night, which I don't know why that was ever allowed, but when I would wake up in the morning, I was so sore and in so much pain. If I didn't wake up 3 times during the night, like I know I would feel it in the morning. So I would take ibuprofen 2 times a day. Like I was really just trying to find a way to have some relief with this. So eventually it got to a point where my family, I had told my dad about it. He's had 3 back surgeries, and he knew that we should probably go get this checked out. So we had gone to the doctor, and it was mostly because of my shin splint issue. I kind of figured that was what was causing any other pain in my body because, it's very closely related to my feet. Doing high impact, it all seemed very connected to me. And so they decided to do x-rays of my whole lower body, and they decided to scan my back too because, like I had said, those two are kind of linked together, and where you have pain in one area, it can lead to pain in another. And so the results came back, and I had learned that I had fractures in my L4 and L5 vertebrae and a bulging disc. And like a little foreshadowing is I do still live with that, but I'm going to get to that here in a second too. When we were sitting in that appointment, I just remember the doctor came up to my dad and I and was like, well, you should probably plan on having surgery. And keep in mind at this point I was 18 years old, and so luckily my dad, I would say he got pretty protective, and he kind of demanded that we would get a second opinion, right? Because when you're that young, one surgery leads to another, leads to another. You barely ever hear of anybody that's ever had like one back surgery. And so he wanted to get a second opinion. I was all for that. And so I would say like after that appointment, I left pretty frustrated. I was really confused. I didn't even know I was struggling with that. I just know that my back wasn't comfortable, but I didn't go in thinking that would be the result. And I was also just kind of annoyed that that would be the first instinct for a doctor to have to me while I was in an appointment at 18. So then I went to another doctor, and they had put me on diclofenac, which is an anti-inflammatory, pain medication. And I also got a back brace to sleep with. And as a freshman in college, there's nothing that quite makes you feel more unattractive than wearing a back brace. So I just remember too with that, like it forced me to be in such a strict position that I would, again, wake up crying. I remember my college roommate would comfort me. There was one night I remember in specific, I just woke up and was sobbing. And I was just like, I just feel like I'm in so much pain. I feel so ugly. I'm so frustrated. And I just didn't feel good about myself, right? When you are in that state at such a young age, like something like that is pretty impactful. And it was a pretty hard period, I would say, for me of my life. And so then I took that pain medication for about 1.5 years. It did what it could, it wasn't perfect. I would wake up in the night with some pain, but as soon as I took the medication, within 20 minutes, it would start working, and I could continue on with life. But then I was at a checkup and they had done some blood work because they wanted to just make sure things were still going okay. And they found that like the filtration system in my kidneys wasn't functioning properly due to the medication I was on. And so I either had, a couple options as I could switch to a new medication, or I could, and I decided this for myself, I could change my lifestyle. And so with not being on medication, I started to slowly change my lifestyle, but I was still looking for that like fix, not surgery, but something that would fix it. And I just wanted it to go away. So I ended up doing 2 rounds of steroid injections and neither of them worked. So kind of the time frame of this is in September of 2018, I saw the doctor for my initial pain, told me that I needed surgery. And then to March 2020 is when I moved home due to COVID, moved home from college. And then I would say that's probably when my health healing journey, I should say, truly started. So before I moved home, I wanted to kind of describe what my lifestyle typically had looked like. So I had independence, right? You go to college your freshman year. And so I didn't make choices that supported my health. I ate at the cafeteria or sorority house, and if you've ever eaten college cafeteria food, you know that it's pretty greasy, not super fresh, not super high quality. They need to feed a lot of people on a pretty small budget. I also had started drinking at this time. I also wasn't sleeping a lot. I'd probably get about 6 hours of sleep a night because I would be up studying, or I had dance practice until 11 p.m. Typically didn't go to bed until 12 or later. And I also ate out a lot of times during the week. So to give you some perspective of like where my body was at this time, within the span of a year, I had gained 35 pounds, and I didn't want to be the person that gained the freshman 15, like they always joke about. Well, I didn't. I gained the freshman 35, and that was a really hard time for me because I had never been at like a heavy weight. I'd always been very active, and I was still active. That was the thing. But I know that the food I was eating, the drinking, like there was no way that I was truly fueling my body to stay at a weight that was comfortable for my body. I did continue to work out, but I was so inflamed during this time that it always just made me feel worse. And I just didn't want to do it because I didn't feel good when I did work out, because I probably wasn't doing it correctly, but also nutrition and exercise are just so closely related that you really have to tend to both. And so then to like compare my lifestyle after I had moved home, this was a time, 2020, we couldn't really leave our house. We were pretty confined. And so I had started working out about 5 times a week, and it was very, very simple. Like I would do those Chloe Ting 20-minute ab workouts, something I probably wouldn't choose to do now, but at the time it was something I enjoyed doing, and I did it, and I was consistent with it, and I noticed a big difference in how I felt because I was finally gaining the core strength that I needed to support my body. I also just ate a lot better food. When you move home and you get to eat homemade food, it's just such a better quality, and I also was able to make my own food. This was a time I didn't drink any alcohol, and I also got off my pain medications at this time. So that checkup I was talking about where, my kidneys weren't functioning or filtering properly, I also tracked all my food. Okay, so I'm not saying everything I did when I moved home was healthy, but these are just some things I did. I also tracked my food, and I would say I was probably eating around 1,200 calories per day. And this is pretty foreshadowing for what else I'll share with you on this episode too. But along with that, I had also gone on a low carb diet. Before this, I was really all about that quick fix. So just get me the medication, the steroid injection, the surgery, whatever I could, so I didn't actually have to change my lifestyle, but as a result of doing that, my life seriously just improved by so much. With that too, I just don't think I was really thinking about those long-term consequences or challenges that would come with getting surgery at 18. That means I couldn't bend my back for the rest of my life, couldn't bend down to pick up a kid one day. Like, I would be stiff and I wouldn't have a lot of flexibility, and it would completely alter my ability to teach dance or to exercise how I have been or to run. And so changes like that would have had to been made that I don't think I really understood at the time. And so, if you've ever had a health concern, right? You probably know too that taking the long way that produces long-term changes isn't always what you want to be your first option, right? The thing with taking the long way, the way of making lifestyle changes, it takes months, years. You have to navigate it all alone sometimes. Like for my instance, I felt like I navigated this a majority by myself, right? There is no pill or cure to subsidize the pain while you're healing, right? So you have to experience the pain and the discomfort like fully. You don't get to take anything to numb that pain. You have to, really take it on day by day and navigate what your body needs when it's in pain, how you can support it, but also live through that, right? You can't just ignore it because sometimes the pain is just too much. So that was a really hard time too, and a hard realization for me. There's also just so much information out there too that it can all really start to feel extremely overwhelming, right? I think too, like with the low carb diet, with eating really low calories, with improving core strength and doing 20-minute YouTube videos, like, yeah, there's good nuggets of information maybe within everything I did, but that in a whole is probably not the most sound advice that I would give anybody. Well, I know for a fact it's not advice I would give anybody now looking back, but at the time, right, I was doing the best that I really thought I could. And, if you maybe are in a similar situation or have been in the past, like it really is important that you always are just doing the best you can with what you've been given, right? So you don't have to go out and buy every supplement under the sun and completely get rid of every processed food that you have in your house and join a gym and do Pilates and spend all this money. Like if you don't have a lot to get started, that is okay, right? Looking back when I was writing this out, I'm like, wow, I really started with every single free resource I could get my hands on. And from there is when I went more in depth. But I didn't start spending any money on this. If I'm being completely honest with myself, I would probably say that my number one desire was to just be very, very skinny. And maybe you've experienced that too in the past where that was your one goal. At this point, my parents had helped me get a health coach, and she was a faith-based nutrition and personal trainer type of coach. And I remember I was on that discovery call with her the first time, and she was asking me what my goals were. And I was like, man, I don't really know. I guess my goal would probably would be to have some abs. It's like, wow, what type of headspace was I in, at 18, 19 years old, where that was my number one goal. That meant that I had made it. That would be a win at the end of her coaching with her if I had abs, and I just remember her saying, okay, well, what's something that's a little bit more deep than that? Do you have any internal goal? And I was honestly pretty stumped because I didn't. I could probably endure a little pain if I looked a certain way or looked how I wanted to look. And so I think that was a very kind of like wake up moment for me too, is when I realized and I didn't realize this right away. There's still a little bit in here where it's kind of fuzzy, but I didn't really realize how poor my mindset was until I started thinking about why I was doing what I was doing. I moved into an apartment that next fall, and that was about a year and a half after I had my initial appointment where I needed to have surgery apparently and had to go through that whole journey of managing my pain. And at this point, my pain had, improved. It wasn't nearly as bad as it was. At this point too, I had lost about 20 pounds. And I also, again, want to emphasize that I'm telling you the weights because that was my primary focus at this time, right? So it had shifted from I just want to feel good to, okay, now I'm a little obsessive over what I'm eating and exercising, and I really just want to look a certain way. At this time, too, I just remember my mom and I would go shopping, and after we were shopping, clothes weren't the size that I wanted them to be, and I would just cry, and I was just so upset with what I looked like. I truly just hated what my physical appearance was, and my mindset was really failing because of this too. And I think when you gain that amount of weight, it's kind of hard for your mind to catch up with what you really look like or how you really feel about it. Because like I had said, my goal was to look a certain way, and when I didn't, instantly I kind of felt like, maybe my worth or my value was less. I was less attractive, less maybe lovable because I was just so unhappy with myself. But I'm not even sure it was really that deep. I really feel like I I needed to feel that for myself. It wasn't so much of like external as much as it was internal. And I really like that was how I would see value in myself. And there's some things that come too that I want to note when you solely do what you're doing for the goal of looking a certain way is that you really care less about the quality of food that you're eating and more about the calories that are in that. So you could still eat a pretty inflammatory diet when it comes to my back pain. I could have still been really inflamed, and I was, because I wasn't caring about the quality of my food as much as I was caring about the calories in it. Another thing with this too is you kind of dread working out because you obsess over all the calories that you've burned too. So like during this time, I remember when I was living in this apartment with some friends, I would wake up pretty early in the morning. I would work out for an hour and a half. And I did that because I had a goal of burning a certain amount of calories. And after that, in the afternoon or the evening, I would walk a little bit over 2 miles with my dog. During this time, I definitely used the excuse that I needed to do this for my mental health, right? And for a lot of people, that's very valid. And I mean, I get that. But that also could be something that you hear from someone that is trying to hide or cover up any obsessive behaviors that they have. So for me, it was exercise. For somebody else, it could look like food. I just really care about high quality food. When in reality, like maybe that underlying of that is they want to have complete control over everything they're eating because they're chronically counting calories. And it could look so much different across the whole span of someone's life. But for me, I really think that was trying to just cover up the obsessive behavior. When you live with roommates, you can't really hide a lot of things. And so I was using that to kind of probably cover up that behavior so it didn't seem as abnormal, even though looking back at myself, it was very abnormal. The thing that came with this is I continued to not be content with what I looked like and what I saw in the mirror because my mindset was never put first. Okay, I want you to hear that again. If that is something, if what I'm talking about is resonating with you at all, I really, really encourage you to put your mindset first. We need to figure out where our mind is, what our mindset is around food, what is it around your body, what is it around exercise, what is it around relationships, right? So mindset has to be put first, and that is something I still struggle to do. It's something that is still not something that comes easy, but I know if that would have been my number one priority, if I would have just put my mindset first and said, maybe there's somebody that I can talk to about this. Maybe I should open up to my friends about what I'm going through. Maybe I should open up to my mom or my parents and let them know how much I'm struggling. My mindset going forward would have probably looked a lot different. With this too comes the need for control. So mindset should be put first, but kind of above that is like when I talked about the food I was eating and the exercise I was doing, is I just always had this need for control. I really shifted from eating something very low calorie to instead needing control over what I ate, how it was made, where it was from, or control over how long I exercised or how many calories I burned. And I remember too, there was a time when I had talked to my roommate and she had shared with me too, because we had gone to a yoga class, and she was like, you just have gotten so small, like quickly. And she'd also shared like, it just doesn't feel like you eat very much and you're very active. And I think this was like kind of the first time too, when I had finally shared with somebody what I was struggling with. It's a lot easier to focus on these things by yourself. It's a lot easier to not open up about it because it can feel really heavy and guilty, and you don't want other people to see that you're struggling because that makes you feel weak. Or like in my instance too, it was just really hard to share that I maybe actually was struggling with something deeper than just needing control. Maybe there's actually something underlying there, maybe I really did have disordered eating and body dysmorphia, and those things came up for me during that time when I realized that a lot of what I was struggling with was actually something that you could kind of like diagnose for yourself. I think when I finally realized that, and I finally shared it with somebody, I realized how much people actually want to hear what you're going through and how much they actually care. You know, you kind of think, well, nobody really cares. Like, I promise that there's somebody in your life that does care about what you're going through too. And I know sharing with people can be really difficult, but also the closer you get to people comes from how honest and vulnerable you are. Like I was saying with spirit, you have to let God in, you have to let people in too. I want to share with you 4 things that during this time really changed after, that moment where I finally had recognized what I was going through. I recognized, okay, maybe it's gone a little too far. And so the first thing for me that changed is I entered a healthy relationship. And through this, I was affirmed and loved regardless of my appearance, right? Like, I'm pretty sure my husband doesn't really care at all about what I would look like. It's not anything that I'm complimented on constantly because it's not something that he values most about me. He's also somebody too that I knew would listen without judgment, and he would also call out the toxic behavior I was having. So, I mean, this is something he still does, but like if I start to slip back into, well, I don't want pasta and bread today because in the past that would have been something I would have never done. I probably wouldn't have even eaten either of them. But he'll just be like, toxic. And I'll be like, okay, thank you. Like, you called me out. I know that's toxic. I'm moving past it. He knows enough about what I've been through that it's not him mocking me in my mindset. It's him reminding me, hey, we're not going back there. Like, you've become a long ways and we're not going back to that place you were at. I don't want to see you there, so I'm calling it out. Say the second thing I did too was focused on the quality of my food rather than the calories in my food. And this was so huge for me because I finally learned that food affects you differently depending on the quality of it. And when I say that my view of food was just like it completely changed, and I'm going to say that a bazillion times this episode probably, like, wow, this was so huge for me. And it all was. Like, this was all a really big piece of the puzzle. But now I know that quality carbs give our body the energy it needs. And for a long time, I feel like I couldn't really connect the dots of why I didn't. When I look back, it's like, well, when you're cutting out carbs, which carbs equal energy. When you don't have that in your diet, there's a reason you don't have energy. Those are the energy source. And so figuring that out was really impactful with my relationship with food. In addition to this too, I had found ways to exercise that supported my mind. So I would set a time limit for myself. You're not working out for over 60 minutes, and that was as long as it could be. I threw out my Apple Watch. I stopped wearing that thing because I didn't need to know how many calories I was burning per workout. I also stopped tracking everything. Similar to what I was saying about before, but I stopped tracking, period. Like, I didn't track calories eaten per day. I didn't track weight, and I still don't. Even if I go to the hospital, I step on the scale, I close my eyes because I don't care. I don't want to know. And I know that if I saw the number, regardless of what it was, it probably wouldn't be what I wanted it to be. And so, in my mind, the act of continuing to weigh myself just didn't really make sense. I want you to know where I come from so you can also understand that I don't come from a place of judgment. I come from a place of empathy. I've been through it. I am so proud to say that I've healed my chronic pain and inflammation. I don't live in a state of pain and discomfort anymore. And it was about a 4-year journey, which that number shocks me because it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. But it has been such a journey for me, and that's why when I say it's taken 4 to 5 years for me, for you to start your own journey and to have the tools to get there is half the battle, right? I mean, there's people I work with, it's like 4 months, they feel like a completely new person. It's like, wow, like 4 years it took me because I navigated it by myself. So that's why I share this, because it's not been a snap of a finger and that quick, oh yeah, I feel great, only took me a month. Like, this is such a long journey, and so that's why I want you to know where I'm coming from. And so it's important to me that I'm honest about my story, because moving forward as I share, I really want you to get the full picture of where I come from, where my stance comes from and my beliefs, because you know where I've been. So this is like a great first episode. If you're referring anybody else to my page, like send them this podcast and let them know my story before they listen to the rest of this, because this is kind of that foundation that I'm building, and I'm going to continue to build upon this and talk much less about myself and more about other people. I'm going to bring in people to interview about different health topics, different wellness topics, different ways that you can find your purpose. Even just hearing somebody's story makes you think, wow, like I could do that. Like I want to help you find your purpose. In a second here, I'm going to close this in prayer, but I also have a few announcements, okay? So if you listen to this podcast and you're still here, you're still listening, message me and let me know, because when I say I want to be friends, I'm not just saying that. I'm not somebody that just talks and doesn't follow through. Like, I really do. So message me, share your biggest takeaway, and let's connect in that way too. Last thing, if you would leave a rating and review, go ahead and screenshot that and DM it to me, because I'm going to do a wellness bundle giveaway at the end of the year. So last day of December, there's going to be something really cool coming someone's way. And so if you go ahead and do that, I'd really, really appreciate it. And I would get you entered into winning that wellness bundle. With that, I would invite you to bow your head and we'll close this in prayer, let you get on with the rest of your day. So dear Lord, thank you for this day, for the opportunity to talk to whoever is on the other side of this mic, and that they can really just hear my story and resonate with all of it or a piece of it, or even just like a sliver of something I've shared today. I ask that you just place it on their heart and that they explore it deeper, that they would take it as a sign that maybe that's an area that they need to further explore and look into. And I just ask that with your help, they're able to do that and find healing and find peace within being in conversation with you, letting you in and letting you help them on their health journey, and as they navigate, finding all of the different ways for them to truly just live out the purpose that you've placed on their heart. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. All right, and with that, I will talk to you next Wednesday. Thank you again for listening. Bye.